how else do you come up with this? Like, it's just so damn cool. Hello everybody, welcome back to regular type videos. It's been, yeah, since BEA. It took me a couple days to recuperate, and then I realized I was really behind in actually filming, so. This video is a book review for Blackout by Mira Grant. This is the third book in the News Flesh trilogy. I believe it is the final book. So while this is the final book in the original trilogy, there is actually a fourth book coming out called Rewind. I will put down here somewhere when it's coming out. I will definitely want to read it. But this review is about this book, so let's get started. So after the horrible, emotionally scarring cliffhanger ending of the second book, Blackout picks up pretty much right where that left off. Thank God. I did Blackout primarily on audio, even though I do own a physical copy of the book. I was first and foremost incredibly disappointed to find out that they had switched narrators. No thank you. I quite enjoyed the narrator from the second book. However, the narrator for the third book, both of them, the female and the male, are actually the narrators for the first book, so they were just reverting back. But I liked the voice of the narrator from book 2 much better anyway. Anyway, it took a little bit because I did do both audiobooks back to back to kind of get into it, but once I got past that hurdle, it was fine. I enjoyed it. So I don't know how to do this review without giving away major spoilers for the second book. So I'm just not going to. So if you have not read the first 2 books and you want to, be warned, because I'm not going to stop myself from saying anything in this book. So there are going to be tons of spoilers. I'm sorry. I honestly don't know how to review this without giving stuff away. So you're warned. Feel free to click off, and when you're finished reading this book, come back and watch this video. And if not, you've been warned, so don't come crying to me about the fact that I gave away major plot lines for book 2. Here goes. What the fuck did I just read? That's pretty much my whole starting point for this review, because what the fuck? The cliffhanger of book 2, the fact that George is now a fucking clone. Oh my God. I mean, you should have kind of seen it coming with the whole doctor stuff, foreshadowing, but seeing it foreshadowing and actually having it happen, 2 completely different things. I loved how they did the clone stuff. Like, I absolutely loved it. I liked the fact that George and Sean were very much separate for quite a large chunk of the book until they literally collide head on to come together. The entire time was like, because you're reading and you know you're figuring out both perspectives at the same time, like yelling at each other character. And I'm like, no. So when they finally were together, I was like, yes. But then I was like, shit. Because, yeah, Bex was an issue. We'll talk more about Bex later, hopefully. I loved how they did the relationship with everyone, but specifically with Clone Georgia, because she was self-aware, but also knew that she was Georgia. So, oh my God, like, I was just, mind was blown, like completely blown. I kept listening to the audiobook because I was so enthralled with it. I knew I would skip ahead with the regular book and just spoil myself for other stuff. One thing I did find about this book was the vast similarity between it and the Resident Evil movies, the later ones. I love those movies. I am such a huge nerd when it comes to that sort of thing. As soon as they kind of like revealed that George was a clone, I kind of had an inkling that it would be a little bit like Alice from Resident Evil. And then, of course, you know, suspicions turn into facts. And I liked the way that they did it. I thought that it was all done really well as far as like the cloning and stuff goes. I enjoyed the way that the storyline for that played out when George was still like by herself in the medical Center for Disease Control and all of that. So I enjoyed how they played out that whole storyline throughout the entire book too, especially when other characters are introduced. When they brought in characters from the first book again, I was like, whoa, hold the phone, like you knew about this, oh my god. Like I was having all of the reactions and emotional trauma throughout this book. I enjoyed how the George voice for Sean kept getting like nastier and nastier. I thought it portrayed really well to the fact that he was mentally unstable, and you know, his inner voice, his inner questioning and inner demons was really coming to light with the George voice. And then when you're pairing the George voice when George actually comes onto the scene, I enjoyed the battle that Sean had internally with trying to like come to terms with all of this. Also, how they prove that George is like 97 point whatever George, just, I should have seen it coming. Like, I really should have. Even my review of the last book before I started reading this one totally like hints toward it. Yeah, so I gotta kind of take back what I said in that last review, because yeah, when it's like, it's literally laid out black and white what their relationship has been in the past. And when they do that, and you're like actually staring at it straight on, you're like, how have I been so stupid that I didn't catch on that that's how it was? Like, it should have been very, very obvious. But yeah, I guess a lot happened in the first book, so it's understandable that you don't notice it, but I kind of felt stupid, I'm not gonna lie. Keep in mind, they're not biologically related, so it's not as gross as it sounds. Really. And it's kind of gross, but it's not as gross as it could be. Let's put it that way. I loved how Mahir and Bex were much, much bigger in this book than they have been in other ones. And even Maggie. Loved Maggie's character. I loved the introduction of different side characters as well. And like, just, I loved this book so much. Like so much. I thought the storyline played out fantastically well. It tied a lot of loose ends up. It did leave a couple open for like the next book that's coming out. But all in all, like everything was really done and finished spectacularly. I love that in this book you do get a bit of insight into like how they kind of develop some of the things, like the blood tests, for example. I loved that. And like the look into India, which was really like kind of a ground zero type for the outbreaks because it's just so heavily populated, it spread so quickly. There was a lot covered in this book. I mean, this is a hefty book. Like, it's, how many pages is this? There's 634 pages in this book, and it is mass market paper bound, but I mean, this is like pretty much the size kind of a Game of Thrones book. Like, it was a long audiobook. It took a long time to read, but it was so worth it. You really see the extent of conspiracy that has progressed throughout the entire series from book 1 to book 3. You don't realize until it kind of slaps you in the face just how deep everything does go, which I loved. I was blindsided by a lot of things. There were a lot of character deaths that I just could not believe. You also in this book get to see more of Sean and George's parents, and just exactly how kind of corrupted they are as far as the want for media coverage and like numbers, basically. They kind of seemed, and this is going to seem really weird, but they kind of seemed very Kardashian to me. Pretty much, you know, doing anything they could in order to be put once again close to the top for ratings and viewership and, you know, sharing online so that they become more popular again. I found that dynamic incredibly fascinating. And at the time that I was reading this, I was also studying for my psychology final. So I also, you know, had all these psychology things going through my head and then reading this. So a lot of it translated nicely. I thought I was sitting there and being like very philosophical and thinking like, oh, I wonder if this person suffers from this, or like, this sounds like they have this condition. Like it should be treated like this. And just, I geeked out so hard on this book. It's not even funny at all. I definitely recommend these books to anyone who wants a really, really smart and witty zombie dystopian type apocalypse book. It is very heavy on science, or well, the science part of science fiction. So it's not going to be for someone who can't read that and kind of like comprehend it as a part of the storyline. It's definitely for people, I think, who are fans of The Walking Dead and want kind of like a different zombie perspective. It's amazing. If you want to try reading something and this is not normally your genre and you want to try something new, I would definitely recommend it. However, going into the first book, you do need to realize that it is rather dry. I know that sounds weird. Like it's a very dry kind of like textbooky read in parts, but as the series goes, it just gets more and more phenomenal. So it's definitely one that you want to stick with because they are really big books. Give it a try. By the end of the first book, you'll be hooked, I promise. Probably more than before the end of the book, but you know what I mean. I want 10 more books like this, so if you have any recommendations, put them down below, because I fell in love. I then, after finished reading this, I read her first book in the Parasitology, which I'm pretty sure I already posted the review for. So I'll post all of my Mira Grant reviews down below. And it was just as amazing. Like yes. I need the second book of that as soon as possible. I don't think I can express how much I adored this book. Like, I would have given it 1,000,000 stars out of 5 if I could have, because it was awesome. So that's it for me for Blackout by Mira Grant. I adored it. I'm sorry if you watched and I spoiled like everything for you. And by everything, I mean like the one major plot line that's brought to you at the end of the second book and then something that's very obvious, but I couldn't contain myself anymore. I was really good with the second review and I didn't reveal it, so yeah. Sorry. So thank you for watching, and until next time guys, happy reading.